Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm Richard Screeton. I'm head of the Alumni Relations team here at the University of Manchester, where we have the great privilege of looking after our relationships with students and alumni like yourselves after you've graduated. And it's great to see so many of you here for this year's Cockcroft Rutherford lecture, and we're delighted to welcome you back to campus. And a very warm welcome as well to those of you who are watching from home. We're very grateful to all of you who continue to support the university after your studies, whether that's through attending events like this or supporting students to make a start in their careers, or through donating to the university, or just telling your friends about the great work that the university does. So before we get to tonight's event, I've got a few housekeeping announcements. If you can all please ensure that your phones are turned to silent, that would be great. We're not anticipating a fire alarm test this evening, so if the alarm does sound, please follow the instructions of staff and gather outside of the building to await further instruction. So, without further ado, I've got the great pleasure of introducing our President and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Dame Nancy Rothwell.
Thank you, Richard, and a very warm welcome to you all. It's a great pleasure to see you here for the 2022 Cockcroft Rutherford lecture, particularly since the last time we convened for this lecture was in 2019. Also, a very warm welcome to any of you who are watching online. This event honours Sir John Cockcroft, an alumnus, and Lord Ernest Rutherford, a former staff member, for their outstanding and Nobel Prize-winning achievements during their time at Manchester. They're both a very important part of the rich heritage here at the university, and we're particularly pleased that members of the Cockcroft family are here tonight in person and also watching at home, and we extend to them a very warm welcome. Tonight, in a few minutes, you'll hear from Maggie Philbin, delivering her talk on Innovators of Tomorrow. Some of you will know Maggie from Tomorrow's World, Swap Shop, and Bang Goes the Theory, and for over 30 years she's been working on increasing diversity in science, engineering, and technology. It is for this commitment and innovation to science and technology that after her lecture, we're delighted to be conferring on her an honorary degree, the highest honour that the university can bestow. You'll hear a bit more about Maggie's incredible contributions from Professor Alice Larkin, head of the School of Engineering, during the ceremony. So the past year has tested us all, 2 years, sorry, in many, many ways. But in true Manchester spirit, our community has responded with passion, professionalism and commitment, helping us to achieve a great deal. And I'll just briefly give you a flavour of the scale and diversity of some of the things that have happened in recent times. Well, we opened this amazing building, the Engineering Buildings A and B, known as MECD. They are unrivaled in the UK as a hub of engineering and material science expertise. And of course, the lower floors are open to anybody who wants to come in and see what's happening. Those of you who arrived earlier will have seen many, many students studying in here. They combine Manchester's heritage as the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution with the new purpose-built facilities that will deliver a step change in our approach to solving some of the world's most pressing issues. Work is ongoing, and by September this year we'll be fully open with additional research facilities, lab spaces, and our dynamic new makerspace, where students can let their creativity and entrepreneurial ideas run free. Of course, in moving engineering from what was our North Campus, the UMIS site, creates another opportunity, and that is Innovation District Manchester. We're not selling the site, we're retaining it and working with partners, Bruntwood SciTech, funded by Legal & General, to develop an enormous innovation district. Approximately £1.5 billion funded externally, creating 10,000 jobs and huge opportunities for our students to do additional studies, for joint partnerships with companies, for jobs for our graduates. Last week was an important week. It was the results of the National Research Excellence Framework, which happens every 7 years and assesses the research quality of universities right across the United Kingdom. You can read more about the success, but in essence, we returned over 2,200 staff, and overall our research scored 93% in the top 2 categories. That's internationally excellent and internationally leading. Thank you. We thought it was room for celebration as well. So just over 10 years ago, the University of Manchester became the first British university to set social responsibility of one of its 3 core goals. And just recently, yet again, we were in the top 10 universities in the world, that is in the top 2%, globally for action taken towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we stayed in that top 10 ever since the rankings began. Prompted by the recent tragedy and the need to support students and university staff fleeing conflict zones around the world, we've created an emergency fund of more than £5 million. This will help to provide support for students and academics displaced as a result of the war, initially in Ukraine, but it will also be open to those from other countries. Tomorrow, as for something completely different, I'll be proud to be opening the British Pop Archive, which is a national collection dedicated to the preservation and research of popular culture. And where better than in Manchester, and indeed at the University of Manchester's John Rylands Research Institute and Library. Over the past year, we've made huge progress with our civic mission to improve economic, social, cultural and environmental well-being of our region. Together with the universities of Bolton, Salford, Manchester Metropolitan University and the Royal Northern College of Music, and throughout the pandemic, we met online every week or every 2 weeks, the Vice-Chancellors of all 5 universities working together for the first time. And we've now launched the Greater Manchester Civic University Agreement, the largest collaboration of its kind in the UK, together with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority and Greater Manchester's 10 local authorities. This includes pledges for collective action on 6 priority areas: education and skills, reducing inequalities, jobs and growth, the digital economy, net zero, and the creative and cultural economy. We've also made significant progress with our innovation agenda. In addition to Innovation District Manchester, our own wholly owned subsidiary, Innovation Factory, has had its most successful year ever in spin-outs and startups. With the universities of Leeds and Sheffield, we're about to launch the first round of Northern Gritstone, an investment company which plans to raise investment for university spin-outs and intellectual property-rich companies across the north of England. That should be later this week, and I think the first round launch will be in excess of £200 million. Working with the National Physical Laboratory and other partners, we secured in places, back again, fund for Advanced Machinery and Productivity Initiative. And this is in Rochdale, part of North East Manchester, a very deprived area where we feel the need for development and creating jobs. So levelling up, the big government agenda, Greater Manchester was chosen as one of 3 innovation accelerators, or trailblazers as we're known. We're not quite sure what that means yet, but we'll find out soon, I'm sure, particularly where there's money involved. And as a result of that, we're partners in something called Innovation Greater Manchester. We announced recently our new Chancellor, Nazir Afzal. Nazir was the Chief Crown Prosecutor for the North West of England, most recently Chief Executive of the country's Police and Crime Commission, and he's been an outspoken and ardent supporter of women's rights. And in recognition of these achievements, we gave him an honorary doctorate in 2017. Nazir will take up the role on the 1st of August. But of course, this means that Lem Sisse, who has been part of our celebration, will be part of our celebrations this evening when he presides over the degree ceremony, is coming towards the end of an amazing 7 wonderful, busy years. Lem, you have been a truly inspirational figure in this role. We will be forever grateful for the poetry you've dedicated to the university and its students, for your slightly unorthodox ways of doing things. I shall never forget you dancing on the stage of the Whitworth Hall with Baroness Hale and selfies at the first degree ceremony you presided over, but it's been such fun. And I know you particularly liked degree ceremonies, and especially where you can see students graduating and going on to do great things. During those 7 years, you've authored books of poetry alongside a memoir, which, by the way, I would read if I was you. It's called My Name is Lem. It's a great read, and many articles. You've made radio and TV documentaries, created public art and written plays. And most recently, I didn't know this, you've authored a children's book called Don't Ask the Dragon. I'm expecting your copy, Lem. We're also very glad, though, that Lem is not leaving the university. He will take up an honorary chair in creative writing. But I just want to take a moment, personally on behalf of the whole university, to thank you so much, Lem, for everything that you have done and everything you will do in the future. It's meant so much. We believe that every day the University of Manchester adds value to the lives of people locally, nationally and internationally who are touched by our research, our students, our teaching and learning and our social responsibility activities. And it's through these that we are, to quote Lem, making a difference. And we had a fantastic celebration of many people who have made a difference to the lives of others just last week, which Lem presided over. Our speaker this evening has similarly made a huge difference through her career. And so it is with great pleasure now that I would like to welcome Maggie. Please come to the stage and deliver the Cockcroft Rutherford Lecture. Thank you, everybody.
I'm just looking for my little twiddly thing. Here it is. Excellent. Well, I'm going to do something that if my sister saw me do it would be incredibly proud, which is I'm going to remove my mask to deliver this lecture. I have been I think during COVID people have fallen into two camps. Those who are really, really cautious and those who are perhaps not quite as cautious. And my sister's comment about me was that at the end of days, there would just be 4 cockroaches left and Maggie bloody Philbin. So she would be astonished. This is an absolute honour to be asked to deliver this lecture. And little did I think, back in 1974, when I came to this university as an English and drama student, that one day the roles would be reversed and I would be standing here and delivering a lecture. But I've decided to talk about something which is really close to my heart, which is the innovators of the future. How do we identify them? How do we really encourage them? How do we help them see their own potential and really believe that they could create the world that they want to live in? And I believe we've all got an important part to play. Whether we are parents of young people, grandparents of young people, teachers, captains of industry, there are different ways that we can help not only ignite a spark, but to really keep that flame going. Because it's never been more important that we have diverse talent creating and shaping our world for the better. So I've led Teen Tech for the last 14 years. And I'm imagining that you think this was a logical progression from the work that I did on Tomorrow's World. But I'm very mindful of something that Steve Jobs said, which was, he famously said that innovation was all about connecting the dots, but that one of the issues was that the dots only become obvious in retrospect. It's quite hard to see forwards. So, yes, Tomorrow's World did play a massive, massive part. And I'll have no sniggering at my hairstyle on that programme, which to me seemed perfectly normal at the time. And while I was on the show, it certainly opened my mind to just how huge the whole areas of science and tech and engineering really were. And most importantly, how fascinating all the people who worked in those different sort of areas were and the different routes that they'd taken to become experts in their field and innovators. Now, that little list there are just some of the things that I demonstrated for the very first time on Tomorrow's World. And I do feel really chuffed that I held those exciting pieces of technology in my hands. And because this is like pre-YouTube days, it really was the first time that people in the UK had heard about these concepts. I mean, sometimes I have to remind myself, I didn't actually invent these things. I merely demonstrated them on a television programme. But it was an eye-opening experience for me. Sometimes it was hard to see the wood for the trees, and so when you look at that list, you will see, I thought I would just be honest that yes, indeed, I did demonstrate the electric blanket that knew where your hot bits were, and I wore a pair of pyjamas while I was doing this, and there were complaints to the duty officer at the BBC that it was not something anyone expected to see at 7:30 on a Thursday night. So yes, Tomorrow's World was one of those dots. But another important dot was my daughter Rose. So Rose arrived in 1988, and as she grew up, while she was at primary school, she was really keen on science. She really loved geography as well. As she got into sort of secondary school, that interest started to fade. And when I was sort of saying, tech, there are so many interesting areas in this, this is going to be the area to work in, Rose. And Rose's attitude, which is encapsulated by that picture of her as a teenager, was, you've got to be kidding, it's so boring, why would I want to work in that area? So I was quite disturbed, as you can imagine, by Rose's reaction. Then one of the roles I took on so that I could spend more time with my beloved daughter was I did the outside broadcast for a local radio station. And one of the things about doing this is you have quite a bit of downtime. So for every hour, you'll do, say, 3 or 4 2 or 3 minute inserts, and then you chat to your guests. So I spent a lot of time with young people, and in the downtime, I'd be saying, how are you enjoying science and tech at school? And I got the same reaction from these children as I'd had from my own daughter. And I thought, this is crazy, this is the Thames Valley. There are all of these massive tech companies, sort of both the enormous giants like, Intel and Microsoft, and then, some really cool startups. And I thought, this, we really need to do something about this. And so when I was asked to deliver a keynote at a conference around, why aren't more young people interested in engineering? I said, well, you know what, I think it would be interesting to actually ask the young people themselves, because we know what the stats are. So let's just go and film. And I went into a school in Berkshire which trusted me enough that I said, please don't prepare the children in any way. We want honest answers. And I spoke to all age groups at this school. But just take a look. These are some of the older students talking about their ideas of, whether or not they might consider a career in science.
Well, there's several options which I like maths and science, and my dad's an engineer, so I could follow in his footsteps because I do find it interesting, but I could also go down other routes.
I really enjoy it, but I can't really think myself in a career in science.
Getting a job in science, it's hard because you need degrees and A-levels and stuff, but it's also quite hard to find because everyone else is more interested in doing things like being a professional footballer and things that are more interesting.
From year 7 to year 9, you're doing all these fun practicals and experiments, but then you get to GCSE and it's just a lot of theory in all lessons, not much practical. I think people start to get a bit bored with it.
I like doing practical stuff, actually getting my hand, doing hands-on and stuff rather than writing. I was thinking about maybe aerospace or something like that, because I like sort of working with planes and stuff. I had to go on the internet to find out because there's nothing really in books or anything.
You don't see science on the TV that much. It's in school is the only time you get science.
I think people associate science with being quite boring, so that puts people off it.
I don't think there are many role models in science and technology.
On adverts you see sports people, you see singers, you see actors, but you never see science and engineering people going on adverts, advertising, going on television programs.
If you learn more about what you did in jobs with science, I think that might attract people more.
Unless your parents are in it already, then really, who is there?
I quite badly want to be a musician now, so I think I'm going to move away from science.
So that was really revealing to me. I mean, and if you distill the various comments that were made by those young people, they're quite revealing. They acknowledge if you've got a parent or a relation, someone close to you, you're more likely to want to go into those areas. It's quite hard to understand, particularly in the applied sciences, what on earth people actually do. And, you know, I was sort of thinking at the time, you know, back in 2007, I used to show this slide at events and say, these things are coming on the horizon. These are fast-growing areas. And I wanted to find a way of bringing them to life for those young people, because there was a narrative at the time that young people were not interested in technology, they weren't interested in engineering. But when I talked to those children, they were interested. They just didn't have the right kind of stimuli. And I thought, what can we actually do about it? And when talking to employers, you know, they would sort of talk, yes, we do need people with the right skills. But the qualities that I've placed around the circle of digital skills there were the ones that employers were really crying out for. And you'll know, if you've got either children of your own or if you teach, you can't just waltz into a classroom and go, right, we're going to be creative today, and then we'll move on to something else next week. We carried on asking young people, because the important thing is, ask them. And so I said, you know, one of the default things that people do is to go into a school and do an inspiring talk. What's the most irritating thing that people do? And this is a list of things that those students sort of told me. And again, it was quite revealing. And I think perhaps the last one there, they try to role model you into themselves. So when we started to think about Teen Tech, and initially I thought it was going to be a one-off event, not that I would be here 14 years later with you know, the organisation that we have now. I thought we need to address all of the things that the young people are saying that they actually want. So now we have a comprehensive offer for young people right the way through primary to when they leave secondary school or college. And the thing they have in common is it's all about helping those young people build a network, connecting them, you know, with the sort of like the real world of science and tech, you know, whether it's at universities like this one, and we do Teen Tech here in Manchester, or whether it's with certain specialist companies. And as you can imagine, it's all about hands-on. It's all about, you know, showing them, well, you might think you know what the BBC do, but here, let's show you what it might mean to work on the technology side of the BBC. And certain concepts, like, say, data, we think about how can we make this meaningful? And one example that we show is a problem that Transport for London had, because they were interested in understanding what route, when people came into London to King's Cross and they wanted to get to Waterloo, what route did they actually take? And, you know, they thought there were some fairly obvious ones that everyone would take, but, you know, data helps you really understand. So they use people's mobile phone signals to understand. And so just have a little think, a little guess for fun. In fact, I might ask, I'm going to do that awful thing of picking on someone on the front row. So I'm just going to pick on this lady in the front row. How many routes do you think wild guess, what would you imagine? If I'm Transport for London, I've got this lovely map. How many routes? Just a guess. 12. 12. 4. 12. Here you go. This is what people actually do in the real world. So that was quite interesting, and data helped TfL understand that. There were some very strange routes there, together with the one I might have taken, which may be by Oxford Circus. Another example I use is my son-in-law. My daughter and he, they met at school. when they were 16. I'm very proud. He's in a rock band, White Lies, new album just out, should you wish to buy it. And the drummer in the band is quite a techie. And he went, have you ever seen the back end of Spotify? And I hadn't, actually. And obviously the kids know Spotify, they use that. And he said, right, well, we use this. And at any one time, the band can see which songs are people listening to, what are they streaming, how old, what's the sort of age range of people listening to that music, and most importantly, where are they based? Because in the music industry now, you make your money when you go on tour. And as they're a band who originated in Ealing, no prizes for guessing that they're very big in London, but one of their biggest markets is Mexico. And you wouldn't guess that, and they know that through the data. And knowing that data makes a big difference to a band, because it means you can play gigs like this and ones where you've actually got an audience. One of my key messages around young people is they deserve to be listened to and listen hard. And if you come to anything that Teen Tech do, and when I say Teen Tech do, I'm counting you in this because I would very much like you all to become part of Teen Tech. I certainly don't do this on my own. It depends very much on people like yourselves. You'll see a lot of listening to those young people. Everyone listens, they talk to them. What are you interested in? And guess what? They're interested in all sorts of things. They're really diverse. And it doesn't matter. You can start to really engage that girl by talking to her about, using some wonderful graphic designing in terms of tattoos, if that's what she's really interested in. And one of the projects we do is called Teen Tech City of Tomorrow, and we were just quite interested in understanding what matters most to young people. And so we asked them to sort of say, right, imagine you are a town council, you've got a limited amount of money. What are you going to spend it on? Are you going to spend it on improving entertainment in your town or city? Are you going to spend it on improving sports facilities? Do you care about crime? We asked them to choose, and we said, money is limited, you can only choose one thing. What is the most important thing to you? And I can always remember standing alongside one of the councillors from Doncaster, which was where we asked this question first, in front of about 250 students from different schools, and this is what they said. And that thing around crime prevention remained the most important thing to young people. Everyone had predicted in their heads it would be perhaps related to entertainment or sport, but no. Young people are often either the victim of crime or they are fearful that they will become the victim of crime. So yes, if I just revert to stats, does what we do have an impact? Yes, it does. But stats don't mean anything. Let's go back to those young people. What difference are we making to those young people? Well, this is Nicole. And Nicole has a condition called narcolepsy, which means that very suddenly, and for seemingly no reason, she would just fall asleep. And over the years, this condition made her feel incredibly introverted. As her mum said, she used to sort of hide behind her hair. Well, she came to a Teen Tech event, and everything has a next step. And the next step was, why don't you just design your own project? How would you make the world better, simpler, safer, or more fun? And Nicole thought, right, actually, I'd like an easier way when I'm travelling, because if you suddenly fall asleep like that in the back of the car, that was something that she found very, actually really quite painful at times. So she, for her project, designed a special kind of seat. And what we do, because of this, I feel that one of the most important things you can give young people is a network. We connect young people with people who can really help make a significant difference to their thinking, but also be valuable in the future. And so Nicole was supported by UCL in this instance and the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital. So she came along to Teen Tech, and those mentors continued to work with her. And the next year, she became the runner-up Young Engineer of the Year. And she went off to Pittsburgh and had an amazing time there, her confidence growing all the time. She came back to Teen Tech with a couple of years later with another brilliant idea, because as she was getting older, it's quite dangerous for her if she suddenly sort of falls down in the shower. And her parents were always very anxious about her showering on her own, but she wants, you know, her own privacy. So she invented a device that would detect if she had any kind of an episode when she was in the bathroom, so that she could shower in privacy. And she's now doing an engineering apprenticeship. So that's one student. And then outlined in pink here is Grace, who came at 12 to Teen Tech Ascot, I think it was. She did a Teen Tech Awards project. She joined our Young Digital Task Force to help inform. We did a report which was cited 40 times by the House of Lords when they did their own report on digital skills. So she joined our task force, presented at BET, coached other students in her school through the awards, and she's now doing an apprenticeship at IBM. And then Charles, who is in the middle of this group of three lads. So Charles, and by the way, I am allowed to talk about all of these students. In fact, they've joined our Teen Tech board, so they are comfortable about their stories being told. I wish they could be here in person to tell them. But Charles was frequently in detention at his school. And by a wonderful bit of chance, the students who were in detention were in the same space as the students who were in the Teen Tech Club. And the teacher who ran the Teen Tech Club noticed that Charles was always there and said, look, you're here all the time. You might as well come here and be part of what we're doing. And so he developed a project, and it was a really interesting idea for an augmented reality comic. So we connected Charles and his, in fact, his whole class with the CTO of Disney in the States, who coached them, and they won the Future Entertainment. And Charles, that was the point where he says that completely focused him on what he wanted to do, and he's now working for a tech company. And incidentally, we trust our students to come and present at events like this and at international conferences, because they can really capture the difference that good support from people like yourselves can make. It's all about installing a sense of confidence, the idea that you can make a difference, that if you're not happy with the world and the way it runs, with the things that need to change, that it's giving young people a sense of empowerment, not a false empowerment, but saying if you develop certain skills, you really can make a difference, and increasingly your views will be listened to. We've measured over the years, one of the great benefits of being 14 years down the line is that we're able to assess the medium and longer term impact of what we're doing. So at this school in Scotland, again, in an area of social disadvantage, over 1,000 students at that school have done Teen Tech Awards. That drove the demand for a specialist engineering department at that school. Now, we don't do this on our own. I've mentioned all of the wonderful supporters and mentors, and of course you need those brilliant teachers who are happy to work alongside and support your work. And it's fantastic when those teachers feed back on what the Teen Tech alumni are doing. And so this is from a school in Sandbach, actually, not too far from here in Cheshire. So you really can make a difference. It takes time, though. You can't just do a one-off event. Nothing changes with a one-off. So many people, and it is wonderful when people come up and go, I'm doing what I'm doing because of Tomorrow's World. But the thing about Tomorrow's World was we were on a Thursday night for 38 years, every Thursday night. We were always there. And so you have to look, when you're working with young people, it takes time. So at this school, and this comes with the sort of health warning, this was a private school, they wanted to shift the uptake of the number of girls doing physics, and we did that within 3 years because we provided a context for the learning. So I am proud, really proud of the reaction that we get. It makes me get up in the morning, and even though I loved my television career, these 14 years with Teen Tech have been the most special of my life. They've just been so rewarding in many different ways, and it's fantastic for the whole team when we hear things like this. And it isn't easy. There's a lot of work that goes into all of the events and initiatives that we run. But goodness me, you feel like it's payback time when the young people themselves, and I often just say that with the young people who come to Teen Tech, because we don't preach to the converted, they are rather like, in terms of promoting science and tech, they're a bit like ex-smokers telling other smokers to stop, because they have kind of really seen why it can make a difference. And that's why sort of Charles is such a powerful role model within his whole school and indeed within Brixton. And these girls were rewarded not only with a special award from Radio 1, but also from the Queen. They got the British Empire Medal. So my question is, make sure you help our mission. I hope we've sparked a few ideas for, if you're not already doing things with young people, what you might do. Obviously, I'd be really happy to recruit any and all of you. And just in case you're wondering what might have happened to Rose, here's Rose now. She came to Manchester University and she did a degree in geography, so that teacher who was so magical at primary, that remained with Rose right the way through. She did really well, better than I did at university. She got a first, and now she works in tech because she finally saw the light. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
So thank you, Maggie. That was brilliant. Can you hear me okay at the back? Yeah, okay, good. I'll just speak loud. Fantastic. One of the things that rang true with me was practicals. I am a scientist, but to me, you can't learn biology, physics, chemistry from a book. It's like trying to learn to drive, reading a book. You've got to do it. So I think practicals in schools are really, really important. Maggie's kindly agreed to answer some questions. If people have some questions for her about Teen Tech, about what we can do to support Teen Tech, and obviously we will do, this amazing engineering building, or about her career and Flora's World. So we have one here. We've got roving microphones. If you just hang on 1 second. Thank you.
I was hoping you wouldn't need to use a microphone.
I'm feeling this is like payback time for all of the awkward questions I used to ask my lecturers at Manchester.
This is one I prepared earlier. Have we produced an education system that concentrates on pouring information into students, is obsessed with examination results, and at the expense of developing talent, ability, and aptitude?
And the short answer is a definite yes, I think we have. My feelings are that we could strip away so much of the bonkers measuring that goes on in schools, because not only is it dispiriting for some of those students who start to see them, a ridiculous number start to see themselves as failures, and they're not failures, they just think differently, and that is incredibly valuable. But also their teachers become dispirited, because that isn't what they want to teach. They, because they know that a lot of what they're doing isn't in the best interests of those young people. So yes, if I was completely redrawing education, I would create a bit more space in the school day. I would create space as well for those young people to fail, which might seem an odd thing, but it's a really useful thing as long as you recognise that you've failed and it hasn't worked out. With the Teen Tech Awards, we reward the kids who go so far with the project and then realise it's a dead end. Because, you know, as grown-ups, how many people persist with something when it's obviously not going to work out? So understanding it's not worked out, recognising it is a really important attribute. But yeah, I'm completely with you. And I'm sometimes at my wit's end with what actually happens. And that young people and their teachers are not being served well. Yeah.
Got a question here, and then one there, and then one up there. One here, and then we'll come back to one at the back in a minute. And I've got one down here, one over there, and then one over there.
Thank you very much for your interesting talk. That was very interesting. I seem to think that you said that you came to do English and drama. So what turned you to science and tech?
Good question.
Okay, it's a great question. So when I was sort of 15, I wanted to be a vet. This is a very common thing for many young people if they're interested in science. What can I do? I could be a doctor, a dentist, or a vet. That still happens today, those are things. And I had problems for reasons, you know, I'm not at all sure. I didn't get on with chemistry, and I could see that veterinary science was not going to be possible for me, so I switched to the arts. But I never lost my interest in tech, and I was haunted when I came to Manchester, because on my way to the drama department I had to walk past the medical school, and that always felt like the journey not taken. So that was always there. Then I got that amazing opportunity to work on Swap Shop, where the woman who my daughter's named after, Rose, gave a rookie student, because I was in the middle of my finals, the person at the university library thought I'd completely lost it, because I'd been going in there getting stuff out on James Joyce, and suddenly I was going in there getting books out on tigers, because I had to go and do auditions at Chester Zoo. Anyway, so she gave me a chance, and I learned a huge amount on that programme. And then, again, someone just took a real gamble, and happened to be watching, one of the producers of Tomorrow's World was watching Swap Shop, and I was talking about the cotton mills. I was in Halifax, and they thought, oh, she can explain things. And with no word of a lie, on the strength of that, I was offered a job on Tomorrow's World. And my blood runs cold, because I had flashbacks to chemistry, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do this. And I said, would you give me 2 weeks to think about it? I mean, I can't believe I did this. Would you give me 2 weeks to think about it? And then in the end, I took that risk. And I had a bumpy first year, because I had a lot to catch up on. But you know, it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. So yeah, it's an odd sort of journey. And I think one of the things we could do so much better for people at school is we do silo things, don't we? And the fact that I might love drama does not stop me being interested in science at all, you know. And the fact, I remember one of the criticisms in that first year, and again, the producers were just marvellous. I'm not sure it would happen these days, to stick with me. Because I'd actually got in the charts with a record just before I joined Tomorrow's World. And they said, what's a pop star doing on Tomorrow's World? I mean, I wasn't a pop star. It was just, that was done as a joke, and much to my horror, it went into the chart. But it, you know, we don't give people normally opportunities to travel the road you didn't travel. And I think it would be great to have those opportunities open at every stage. You know, whether it's at school, where you can pick a subject up that you might have dropped. We ask young people to specialise far too early, again, humble opinion, before you really know what you want to do or have enough information about what might be needed.
Do you think the national curriculum needs adjusting as a result of what you would say?
Yes, I do think it needs adjusting. I think it does come back to that sort of vicious circle that is created by the measurement that takes place, the school league tables, and you just get, you know, this vicious circle. We need to get so many students through at a certain level to be in the league tables. And I understand why head teachers do that. I'm sure if I led a school, I'd be doing the same thing. But it does mean that you start to narrow things for students, and the actual curriculum and the emphasis, like, I mean, how mad that design and technology was kind of kicked into the long grass. Mad, completely mad. Design and tech, you know, encompasses so much about what we need from contemporary thinking about, you know, looking for solutions and problem solving, etc., etc. And yet, no, it doesn't really, you know, feature. So yeah, I do think it needs a big overall.
I think we've gone one right over, yes, up there, and then we'll go back up there. And I think I had one in the middle somewhere.
Thank you very much for that talk. That was really interesting. You alluded to some of the differences between boys and girls in terms of their, maybe was it about their participation in science and technology, or I mean, I just wanted to ask you about what your insights are about how boys and girls are approaching it, participating in science and technology. Yeah. And I'm assuming there's still a difference, a sex-based difference in that engagement. So it'd be interesting what your experience is, yeah, and what we can do to address that.
Well, I think in terms of, you know, gender, first of all, what's been quite interesting when, because in a sense, what I've been able to do, though I didn't, as I say, I didn't set out to do it, but, you know, in retrospect, looking back, I can see we did it, was have a bit of an experiment. And early on, there were a few things that we decided about Teen Tech. We wanted to shift that whole thing in terms of, you know, diversity in tech. But I looked around and I thought there's been quite a lot of effort in terms of doing, you know, women in tech and things like that. And it's not to say that shouldn't happen, but it doesn't seem to be shifting the dial. So what would happen if we had mixed groups at Teen Tech? Now, we can do this because we're doing this sort of outside the classroom, and at the event stage, we can balance it. So we can always get 50-50 at the events. But I tell you what has been really interesting is, as I've sort of mentioned, is that they come to a festival or a workshop or whatever, and then we encourage them to do projects for the Teen Tech Awards. And in terms of the participation in the Teen Tech Awards, we always have more girls than boys. And that has been consistent. And that has fascinated me. And people come to the, you know, the final and they see this wonderful, you know, spread of young people. And it is because they're able to work on projects that they care about and in their own way, and they're given support, because some things, you know, if you haven't got the knowledge and if your teacher isn't an expert, it could remain as an idea on a post-it note if you don't have someone to support you. But that seems to make a real difference. And we were just sort of chatting earlier, and I quoted a young student from Minehead, a girl, and her sort of project idea was she wanted to design a toy for her dog, which was blind and also very destructive. And I kind of felt that this dog didn't seem to have a lot going for it, but that was what she wanted to do. So we connected her with the head of sort of materials at the Advanced Manufacturing Institute in Coventry. And so what she did, though she didn't realise she was doing it, was she did some material science. They did 3D printing. They made a toy for her dog. And so if we'd gone to that student and said, right, what about some material science? Well, that might not have resonated to a 12-year-old. But being able to create that toy for her dog was absolutely what she wanted to do. And she was prepared to put the hours in because it meant something to her. And so that, many people are real advocates, me included, in that project-based learning. Because when people coming, our Teen Tech Awards coming up, so it's very fresh in my mind, some of the entries we've received, and they're often staggered by the quality of the work that does get produced. And that's because the students really care about what they're doing, you know, and guess what? They're going to put more time into it, and they're going to learn more.
Okay, I think we've got time for a couple more quick questions, and then we'll have to move on. One here. And can I just say, you're in what is probably if not the biggest, one of the biggest schools of engineering in the country. And as you'll hear later, not wishing to embarrass her, led by a woman.
Thank you, Maggie, for a very wonderful lecture. I want to speak from the perspective from my country, where I'm from, Ghana. And if you were asked to, hi Nancy, if you were asked to do something similar to Teen Tech in Ghana on a very limited budget, what would be your top 3 tips? What do you think would be the needle movers for such a context? And secondly, what do you think you did differently to get stakeholders on your side to invest into Teen Tech? Because obviously it takes money to do something like this. Thank you.
Okay, so with your first question, I would probably start in the same way that we did with Teen Tech, because the thing is that young people in Ghana, they're going to have a different mindset, a different set of experiences. So you wouldn't want just to lift what we're doing and then just take it there. So again, starting by talking to those young people, and then that thing about helping them develop a network so they can make connections, because that's really powerful. And it's powerful in 2 ways. Because yes, the young person learns from, you saw how, and people generally are really happy to share their knowledge, and they enjoy working with young people because young people do see the world in a different way, and they're really fresh with the questions. Like with the lads in Brixton when they were working with the Nick from Disney. So he'd worked with them for a while, and then they had got through to the final, and so there was another meeting arranged, a virtual meeting. And Charles's opening question to the CTO wasn't, you'll never guess what, thank you so much, we're through to the final. Didn't say that. But what he did say was, Nick, I've got a question for you. If you were in a team of 3 and you discovered that you were the only one doing the most of the work, what would you actually do? And I was like, we've all been there. And that directness was so lovely, and Nick loved it, So I think it's quite easy to get people on board, and that thing about starting where the young people are. What do you really care about? What would you like to be able to make? And then sort of building it. And I'm really happy to have a conversation, just to see what might be possible. Yeah.
I'm afraid we've only got time for one quick last question. Sorry for others, but yeah.
Maggie, just on the QT, I'm really amazed what you've done behind the scenes. I remember Tomorrow's World, no matter what was going on, no football, no fun, no girls, it was Tomorrow's World, because it was pioneering a way forward. I want to pick up the concept of mentoring, because it's sometimes lost on society. Ancient civilizations looked up to mentors, because they encouraged them and empowered them to do their own thing. And I had very gifted mentors. One said, don't be a phony. Yeah, stand out of the crowd when you get hit sometimes. The other guy taught me to make radio sets by the age of 10. And the other one mentored me to do things I didn't think I could do. And mentoring is the way forward. I've worked in youth mentoring in the hood, giving people aspirations better than nothing, and knowing they can get jobs. The point of the question is, have you thought of partnering with some of the corporate sectors, IBM, Shell, BP, Esso? Because they're constantly looking for the technological futurists that they need to move things forward in society.
We work across the UK in different ways, probably with about 300 different companies in different ways. And, some it's a very light touch, some are more involved. And we really try to encourage those companies to understand that essentially working collaboratively is the best way of working, because then you can shift the dial. So some of those companies are wonderfully open to working in that way, and others sometimes prefer to do their own thing. But having just seen how important it is for if a young person does something, that there's another thing to go to, that signposting of the what next is really key. And so trying to get that collaboration going forward is really important. But yeah, no, absolutely. The amount of talent which is sitting in classrooms, and sometimes just self-doubting, and not just in classrooms at school, but in colleges and universities sometimes. That's awful self-doubt, and just having things that help you understand that you don't have to be Einstein, but there are ways forward. Just that encouragement is really vital.
Can I ask you to thank Maggie again for
So a few of us are going to disappear very briefly for a quick change into a robe. And in the meantime, Richard's going to introduce a couple of short films, featuring one of them featuring one of the audience.
Thank you. We'll be back.
Hello again. So while we're waiting for the stage party to prepare for the ceremony, which will happen shortly, I'm going to introduce two short videos about the impact that you have as alumni in volunteering for the university and donating to the university. So the first video introduces Manchester Day of Action, which is a global volunteering programme where we encourage alumni to volunteer with their local global communities in support of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Following that, you'll see The Power of a Pound, which is a short film written and performed by Nana Aguiman, one of our recent student union officers, which celebrates the hugely successful student hardship fundraising campaign that so many of our alumni supported during the pandemic. So, yeah, on to the videos.
In 2015, the world's nations developed 17 new priorities to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all. These are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. At the University of Manchester, we believe universities exist for public benefit, and our commitment to social responsibility means that we're addressing these global goals through our research, learning, public engagement, and operations. Our graduates share this belief and help to make an impact through their roles as global professionals, citizens, and volunteers. With around 500,000 graduates worldwide, Manchester has the largest alumni community of any campus-based UK university. Hundreds of our alumni now deliver voluntary social action projects in cities across every corner of the world to address different sustainable development goals. In Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, Manchester alumni volunteered to work with orphaned children aged 12 to 17 to raise awareness about careers and opportunities available to them.
I believe that it is important as an alumni to support the university's social responsibility initiatives, to inspire the children to do well at school and also to be excited for their future.
When cardiac arrest takes place, every second counts, with the survival rate decreasing by 7 to 10% for every additional minute without treatment. Manchester graduates in Hong Kong are volunteering their time to work with their fire department to deliver training courses called Press to Shock, Save a Life. This teaches members of the public to confidently use defibrillators, enabling them to increase the survival rates of those affected.
First of all, it's about well-being, it's about the city and the community, because we can teach ordinary people from the community to help saving lives.
In Paris, Manchester graduates are volunteering in plogging, a Swedish concept that combines jogging and picking up litter to clean up the banks of the River Seine.
This morning we had a lot of plastics that we couldn't pick up, so our action was just a little one, but which helped to achieve this goal.
In San Francisco, our graduates are clearing beaches and assisting with finding creative ways to prevent plastic pollution from entering the ocean, fish stocks, and our wider food chain. the University of Manchester, we've assessed the contribution our staff, students and alumni are making across all 17 Sustainable Development Goals in a pioneering new report. You are in the world, working as a professional or volunteering your time to support people, the planet and prosperity. Let's work together to tackle the world's Sustainable Development Goals by 2030.
Within these walls, childhood dreams become realities. These seats you see have bet champions of the past and will shape the leaders of the future. In these lecture halls, every student takes a course on self-discovery. Whether as an amateur or professional, slowly you will be shaped by the Manchester ideology. Cognitio Sapientia Humanitas. Knowledge, wisdom, humanity. This is the Manchester story, but it is incomplete without you, our donors. You are co-authors of the stories of thousands of students who receive your generosity. Whether a pound or a million, you have created flames that will ignite hidden passions, a renewed hope for a struggling student. You are the reason why a brilliant student can say yes to Manchester. You have not just given money, but you have become part of a living legacy. Every pound you have given is a seed that will grow to become trees. Trees that will bear fruit for homes, communities, countries, and continents. So one day, when our students are clad in their graduation gowns with eyes that glow with pride and smiles that tell a story of how far they have come, in the depth of their hearts will be everlasting gratitude to those who made their journey possible. Lecturers, support staff, janitors, security, family, friends, and you, our donors. We are proud to call you partners.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony is about to start. So, we can ask you all to stand to welcome the procession. Thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, I would like to begin by echoing the President and Vice-Chancellor's welcome to you all this evening. I would also like to say how much I enjoyed Maggie Philbin's Cockcroft Rutherford lecture and how proud I am of this university's history and current work, some of which was highlighted in the films that you've just seen. I'm also very excited to see what the future holds for this great institution. So it is with great pleasure that I now perform one of my official duties as Chancellor, which is to honour a very distinguished individual with the conferment of an honorary doctorate. Maggie has, in her diverse field, contributed hugely to the good of society, and her achievements have had a positive impact way beyond her most immediate sphere of influence. As a recipient myself, I can appreciate their significance, being the highest honour that the university can confer, and in conferring the honour, the university is not just recognising this distinguished individual, it is also making a statement about itself. A university is ultimately shaped, empowered, and defined by the calibre, qualities, values, achievements of those who choose and who it chooses to join its community. Whether it's honorary graduates, alumni, students, researchers, teachers, all the many support staff who help to facilitate academic excellence in many ways. The university is therefore being enhanced by the honour that Maggie will receive. Put simply, we are honoured by honouring her. In just a moment, the Registrar and Secretary will escort Maggie to the centre, and Professor Alice Larkin will present her. Before the ceremony ends, Maggie will address the congregation, so it is with real pleasure that I now invite the Registrar and Secretary to escort Maggie to the centre here for the conferment of her honorary degree of Doctorate of Science Honoris Causa.
Chancellor, distinguished guests, speculating on how we will be living our lives in the coming decades is something that Maggie Philbin inspired countless young people to do during the 1980s and 90s, building a legacy of creative innovators, entrepreneurial scientists and engineers who are shaping the world around us. Now, that might be the part of the story that you're most familiar with, depending on, of course, whether or not you are hooked on tomorrow's world like me. But today I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our honorary graduate, to both highlight her incredible achievements and to illustrate why being awarded an honorary doctorate of science from the University of Manchester is so fitting. Born in Manchester and as a child growing up in Leicester, Maggie was interested in science and wanted to become a vet, as we've been hearing. And although good at maths and physics, her formal studies took her towards arts and languages, and subsequently an English and drama degree here at the University of Manchester. Not long afterwards, she was offered a job as co-presenter on the most fabulous, if you're a child of the 1980s, multicoloured swap shop, an eco-friendly reuse, recycle broadcast well ahead of its time. Those of you who are glued to it, like me, will understand what I mean. After a short dabble in the hit parade, as it was known then, in a band called Brown Sauce, she started presenting Tomorrow's World, where she stayed for 8 years, inspiring young people, and I'm quite sure quite a few passing adults, by introducing many new innovations to her audience. And inevitably, not everything introduced by Maggie on Tomorrow's World has yet become a thing of everyday use. But many things indeed have. Electric bikes or mobile phones are two examples, but sadly the water cycle to commute down the Thames is not something Londoners will be catching anytime soon. Her science presenting then continued through a variety of radio and television programmes, including Body Matters Roadshow, QED and Hospital Watch, then later on leading a project called Talking Teenagers across radio and television for the BBC. Her interest in inspiring young people extended again when she created
the interactive event Teen Tech, as we've been hearing, which is still going strong. Teen Tech is all about helping young people understand the opportunities available to inspire them towards careers in technology, science and engineering industries. In 2010, Teen Tech was awarded Best Engineering Event in National Science and Engineering Week by the British Science Association, who themselves focus on providing engagement programs for audiences underrepresented in and underserved by science, something very much aligned with the University of Manchester's values. As CEO of Teen Tech, the initiative now reaches over 12,000 young people every year, with 75,000 using Teen Tech's resources. And interestingly, Teen Tech came into its own during the COVID-19 lockdown period by delivering over 150 live virtual events for young people. From 2007, Maggie had officially been the BBC's face of technology on television, radio and online, and in 2011 she took part in BBC Radio 5 Live's first Science Night, again reaching out to different audiences. She's made countless contributions across all forms of media over the years, and after appearing as a guest presenter on the BBC TV show Bang Goes the Theory, she went on to become a full-time presenter. And with the expertise gained across the years over such a wide variety of technology topics, she was asked to lead the UK Digital Skills Task Force in 2013, later appearing as a witness before the House of Commons Digital Skills Committee. Awards and accolades have understandably come thick and fast. In 2012, she won a Woman of Outstanding Achievement Awards from WISE for her communications and outreach. She was elected President of the Institution of Engineering Designers in 2014, has numerous honorary degrees, and received an OBE for her services to promoting careers in science, technology, engineering, and maths in 2017, particularly recognising her work with Teen Tech. Her information technology focus has also earned her a significant fan club within the world of computing, not only being named in 2016 as Computer Weekly's most influential woman in UK IT, but also being recognised with a lifetime contribution the following year, entering her in their Hall of Fame. Seeking to inspire non-traditional audiences to engage in science, engineering and innovation, Maggie has a clear vision for what we should and shouldn't be doing. For example, during a mini Wreath lecture, she highlighted the need to inspire teenagers with fresh and accurate images of the contemporary workplaces, where many jobs are going to require science, technology, engineering and maths to be applied, and to try to actively unravel that magical belief that somehow X Factor, the lottery or marrying a footballer will be what's needed to transform lives. In a similar vein, as a patron of the Daphne Jackson Trust, she helps scientists, engineers and technologists return to work after a career break. And she also launched the Helping Hand campaign, supporting older people switching with the digital switchover of television. By actively seeking out different audiences, finding new creative ways in which to open minds to opportunities perhaps seemingly out of reach for some, Maggie's dedication to communicating and engaging around science and technology will have played an important role towards increasing diversity within sectors that are critical to solving many of today's grand societal challenges. Of course, those of us with some influence in these sectors still have much to do to broaden the appeal and accessibility of science, engineering and technology. But it is clear to me that Maggie is a pioneer who has already got us to a better place with our technical workforce than we would have been without her. Maggie has been a true inspiration, particularly, but not exclusively, for younger generations over many years, by helping to translate technology, science, engineering and maths in a way that enthuses and engages people through her inclusive mindset. Thank you, Maggie, from all of us that you've had an impact on and for the difference that you've already created around us. Chancellor, I am very pleased to present you Maggie Philbin for the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
By By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the university, and with great personal pleasure, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Science Honoris Causa.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to say some thank yous now, because I have a sense of embarrassment when I'm awarded things like this, because there are so many people who are owed big time for this. So a few thank yous. First of all, to my wonderful, wonderful mum and dad, who would be just so proud if they were here tonight. My family is from Manchester. My grandparents came over from Ireland. You know, they were very, very poor farmers, and they made a leap of faith, and they came to Manchester, to Newton Heath. And neither my dad nor my mum had the luxury of being able to go to university, but they did everything they could to make sure I had that opportunity. So I thank Tom and Betty for that opportunity. And then I thank all of the wonderful friends that I made while I was at Manchester, who helped me understand what I might be able to do, and also what I would never in a month of Sundays be able to do, because I realized very quickly that I was never going to be able to act in the way that some of my amazing contemporaries did, who went on to have wonderful careers on stage and screen, and also became wonderful writers. But all of my mates at university did things in their own way, in very special ways, and I have incredibly fond memories of them all. And it was great to reunite with them, and I couldn't believe that we had a 40-year anniversary. It just didn't feel like so many years had passed. So thank you to all of them. And thank you to that wonderful woman, Rosemary Gill, who, while I was in the middle of my finals at university, decided that she needed to look in a different place for the presenter of her new Saturday morning programme, Swap Shop. So she placed a box-numbered ad in the stage, and she was just curious to see what will happen, who will come forward. And I saw that ad. It was a bit of displacement activity, if I'm absolutely honest, so that I didn't have to do too much mugging up on James Joyce. And I applied, because there was a phrase in that application, the ad, which said, or would you be willing to learn, after this long list of attributes that their presenter would have. And that phrase is so important. If ever you're placing any kind of work ad, or would you be willing to learn? Because you'll never know who comes forward. And so thank you to Rose for giving me that opportunity. Thank you to the wonderful Tomorrow's World team, who remain my closest and best friends. And thank you, if you watched Tomorrow's World back in the day, for being so wonderfully supportive. And I wonder if somewhere, either in this audience or in our virtual audience, is the wonderful author of a note. Because, of course, this was pre-email days, and on a Friday morning after the Tomorrow's World programme, there would be the most appalling meeting that took place where every tiny mistake was picked up on, and producers would often end up in tears. And we were having one such meeting on a Friday morning, and I was quietly opening my mail under the desk, and I opened this note, which began, Dear Maggie, I hope you are well. I hope Keith is well too. I like listening to Tomorrow's World. So does Peter. Peter is my cat. And I read it out and I said, you know what? You know, don't sweat the small stuff. Just, you know, these are the people that you're reaching. So thank you to you all. This is very special. And in this town, this city where I was born, you know, it's very, very meaningful. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Philbin to officially sign the book of honorary graduates. Now, Maggie predicted the mobile phone. So if you take a picture and save it or put it out into the cyber whatever it is that Maggie probably also predicted. But this moment is a magical one. Dr. Philbin, on behalf of the university, I would like to extend our warmest congratulations on your honorary doctorate and to offer you our very, very best wishes for the future.
Thank you.
I now declare this ceremony closed. Wonderful, wonderful.